They say you never truly know the person you share a bed with until they betray you. I used to think that was just bitter talk from people who couldn't make a relationship work. But after what happened to me, I understand it's not bitterness. It's a warning. Her name was Rachel. We met in college, when neither of us had more than a few $100 in our bank accounts. She was studying marketing. I was in engineering. We'd spend late nights in the campus library. Her sipping bad vending machine coffee, me pretending I understood thermodynamics while secretly memorizing her laugh. By our final year, we were inseparable. She was the one who pushed me to take my first job offer out of state. She said it didn't matter where we went as long as we were together. I believed her. We moved into a small 2-bedroom apartment in Austin. Life was modest, but we were happy. Or so I thought. The first signs. It started small. Rachel began talking about networking events she was attending for work. She'd come home later and later, smelling faintly of expensive perfume that I knew wasn't hers. She claimed her company was pushing her toward higher-tier clients, rich people, big contracts, champagne mixers. I was proud of her hustle. I didn't think for a second that any of it could be a cover. But then one night, I got a text from my buddy Mark. Dude, is Rachel supposed to be at some rooftop bar downtown right now? She's here, and she's definitely not alone. My stomach dropped. I asked him what he meant, and he replied with a photo. There she was, wearing a dress I'd never seen before, leaning in close to a tall, well-dressed man who looked like he belonged on the cover of a finance magazine. His hand was on her lower back. She was laughing. When I confronted her that night, she didn't even flinch. Oh my God, are you serious? That's Evan. He's a potential client. We were talking business. Mark just caught a weird angle. I wanted to believe her, but something about the way she brushed it off, the coldness, made me feel like I'd been slapped. The breaking point. 2 months later, she came home with an announcement. I got an amazing opportunity, she said. Evan's company wants to bring me on as a consultant. It's huge money, Alex. This could change everything for us. She kept saying us, but the more she talked, the more it felt like she meant me. Her hours became unpredictable. She was always traveling for client meetings. I'd wake up alone. I'd go to bed alone, and her phone was suddenly always on silent. One night, she left for what she called a weekend retreat in Dallas. I tried to shake off the unease, but by the second day, it gnawed at me. So I did something I'd never done before. I checked her iPad, the one synced to her iMessage. What I saw made my vision blur. The messages between her and Evan weren't about business. They were about useless business trips as excuses to meet, about how he was going to upgrade her life. There were photos, hotel beds, champagne, the two of them in bathrobes. And the worst part? In one message, she wrote, Alex is sweet, but he's holding me back. You're the future I want. I sat there for hours, rereading it until the words burned into my skull. The goodbye I didn't see coming. When she got back, I didn't confront her immediately. I wanted to see if she'd confess. Instead, she dropped the bomb. Alex, I think we should take a break. I just need some space to focus on myself. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. She dressed it up with talk about self-discovery and not wanting to hurt me, but I knew exactly what it meant. By the end of the week, she'd moved out, straight into a high-rise apartment downtown. Not long after, I saw her on social media. She wasn't hiding it anymore. She and Evan were official, and she was living the luxury life. Yachts, private dinners, designer clothes. She'd traded 5 years of our life together for a shot at being someone's arm candy. The spark of revenge. For a while, I just drowned in bitterness. I stopped going out. I worked, ate, slept, repeated. But then, one night, I stumbled across an old photo of us on my phone, from the days when we were broke but happy. And that's when it hit me. Rachel thought she'd escaped me, that she'd upgraded to a world I could never touch. But I wasn't some small-town kid anymore. I had connections. I knew people. And I had just enough anger left to burn her shiny new life to the ground. I didn't want her back. I wanted her to watch everything she'd gained crumble in her hands, knowing I was the one who made it happen. and I knew exactly where to start. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Emma's face, her smile, her lies, her eyes lighting up when she looked at someone else. I kept hearing her laughter with him. My hands clenched so hard that my knuckles turned white. At around 3 a.m., I sat at my desk, staring at the glow of my laptop screen. My thoughts weren't chaotic anymore. They were sharp, precise, cold. I wasn't going to just confront her. I wasn't going to just walk away. No, that would be mercy, and mercy was something she didn't deserve. Emma had always been ambitious. She wanted a man who could give her the life she thought she deserved. Fancy vacations, designer clothes, invitations to exclusive parties. I had worked hard to provide for us, but apparently my success wasn't fast enough for her. I knew her type, and I knew her weakness. She couldn't resist a man with influence. That's when the idea hit me. I would give her exactly what she wanted, but on my terms. The first step was simple: disappear from her radar without making her suspicious. The next morning, I told her I had been offered a major consulting project overseas that would take weeks. I made it sound like an opportunity one couldn't pass up. She smiled faintly, pretending to be supportive, but I saw the subtle relief in her eyes. She thought she'd have more time with him. Perfect, while she believed I was gone. I rented a small apartment in another part of the city and began working on my new identity. I already had contacts from my business dealings, people who owed me favors. I used them to create the persona of Daniel Reeves, a wealthy investor with international connections. I bought tailored suits, expensive watches, and even hired a luxury car service for appearances. I needed Emma to meet Daniel Reeves, not her boring, predictable husband. It wasn't hard to find out where she and her new man liked to spend their time. My friend Marcus, a bartender at one of the city's high-end lounges, tipped me off whenever they showed up. That's where I made my move. On a Friday night, I walked into that lounge as Daniel Reeves. I kept my sunglasses on just long enough for her to notice me from across the room. I ordered an expensive bottle of wine, spoke with the staff like I owned the place, and made sure my presence turned heads. And then, at the perfect moment, I accidentally bumped into her near the bar. "Oh, my apologies," I said smoothly, my voice calm and confident. She looked up, a little startled, and I saw it, that flicker in her eyes. Recognition? No, not yet, just curiosity. "No problem," she replied, smiling politely. I gave her a charming half-smile and let my gaze linger just long enough before walking away. I didn't push the conversation. I wanted to plant the seed and let her wonder. For the next 2 weeks, I bumped into her at different upscale spots, always looking like I belonged there, always speaking to the right people. She started initiating conversation, asking questions. I play it cool, dropping hints about deals overseas, private events, and exclusive investments. Her boyfriend? He was just a side note in her life now. Something convenient. I could see in the way she leaned toward me when we talked, the way her laugh lingered. She didn't recognize me, not even a shadow of suspicion. And that was exactly how I wanted it, because I wasn't just going to take her away from him. I was going to make her fall for me all over again, without knowing who I really was, so that when the mask came off, the destruction would be complete. By the 3rd week of working with Mason, I had already memorized his schedule better than my own. Mornings were for gym, afternoons for business calls, and evenings for parading my ex-wife at whatever high-end venue would showcase her like a prize mare. He didn't care about subtlety. He liked being seen, admired, envied, and I was always there in the background, pouring drinks, adjusting the lights, and, most importantly, listening. It's amazing how much people will say when they think you're invisible. Mason's circle was a carnival of arrogance. Hedge fund sharks, aging tech moguls, and a few up-and-coming entrepreneurs who were really just trust fund kids playing CEO. They all had 2 things in common: too much money and too little sense. And Mason? He was the ringleader. One night, while I was refilling champagne flutes, I caught something I'd been waiting for. Mason was talking to a tall, silver-haired man I recognized from the business pages. Harold Keaton, a developer with projects in half the major cities in the country. Mason's tone was hushed but urgent. "Harold, I told you, the deal's airtight. They'll never trace it back to us," he said. Harold didn't look convinced. "You're laundering through an LLC with your name all over it. That's not airtight, Mason. That's begging for an audit." My ears sharpened. Laundering? A messy business deal? I didn't need to know the details. I just needed proof. Proof I could use when the time came to make Mason's entire empire collapse. But then came the twist I didn't expect. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw her walking over. Emily. My Emily. She was radiant in a red silk dress, her hair falling in perfect waves. She slid her arm through Mason's like she'd been born to stand beside him. She smiled at Harold like they'd known each other for years. "Harold, we're so glad you could make it," she said, her voice warm, polished, practiced. I froze for half a second. This was more than Emily playing trophy wife. She was part of the pitch. Whatever Mason was pulling, she was in on it. After Harold wandered off, Emily and Mason disappeared to the balcony. I followed at a distance, pretending to rearrange a floral display. That's when I heard Mason's laugh, low, smug. "You're a natural at this," he told her. "If this goes through, we'll be untouchable." Emily leaned in closer to him. "Then you can finally get rid of all those little distractions." Her tone was playful, but the meaning wasn't lost on me. Distractions. People like me. People who could ruin them. That night, I didn't go home. I stayed in the service quarters of Mason's building, replaying every word I'd heard. The pieces were falling into place. Mason wasn't just a cheat. He was dirty in ways that could put him behind bars for decades. And Emily? She'd chosen her side without hesitation. Fine. That meant I didn't need to feel bad about what I was about to do next. Over the next few days, I started small, accidentally leaving my phone recording in rooms where Mason made his shadiest calls, collecting discarded documents from his office shredder, and piecing them together in my apartment late at night. I even began shadowing his assistant, a nervous guy named Brent, who seemed one stiff drink away from spilling his guts about everything. But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Mason's driver, an older man named Carlos, had been with him for years. Everyone trusted him because he perfected the art of saying nothing. One evening, after helping him unload cases of wine, I offered him a drink. By the third glass, Carlos was telling me about Mason's special trips to the Caymans and the cash he carried there. I didn't just have a thread to pull on anymore. I had a rope, and I was going to use it to drag Mason's entire operation into the light. Emily thought she'd traded up. Mason thought he was untouchable. They were both about to learn what happens when you build your empire on lies, and let the wrong man get close enough to see the cracks. And I was only just getting started. I didn't sleep much that night. The satisfaction of pulling the strings behind the scenes was intoxicating, but I knew the real payoff was still far ahead. That's the thing about revenge. It's not about the first blow. It's about the long game, the one where you watch your opponent destroy themselves while you quietly open every trapdoor beneath their feet. By morning, my plan had two main priorities: keep Emily and Carter thinking they were in control, and tighten my grip on their finances without them suspecting me. I walked into the office with my usual easy smile, coffee in hand, making small talk with the team. Carter had no idea that the mystery investor who had recently shown interest in our company's expansion was me under another name, through a web of shell companies and a fake foreign address. I'd become the man he thought was his golden ticket. The genius of it? Every financial decision he made under this influence would drain his resources, while technically it would all look like his idea. But Emily, she was a more delicate part of the operation. I couldn't just destroy her all at once. That would be too easy and, frankly, too kind. No, I needed her feel that creeping paranoia, the slow realization that her perfect life was rotting from the inside. That afternoon, I set the first piece of her personal collapse in motion. Using a burner phone, I texted her from an anonymous number. How much does he know? That was it. No context. Just enough to plant a seed of doubt. I knew Emily's mind. Once she thought there was a threat, she wouldn't be able to stop obsessing over it. The following week, her behavior shifted. At a dinner we all attended with potential investors, I caught her glancing at me too often, like she was trying to figure out if I was involved in something she didn't yet understand. Carter, meanwhile, was drowning in work, unaware that I had subtly altered some key reports that made it look like certain deals were on the verge of collapse unless we acted fast. And by acting fast, he committed to high-risk contracts that looked good on paper, but were financial landmines. I kept playing the role of his loyal right-hand man, helping him navigate these crises. Every suggestion I made was disguised as a life raft, but in reality, it was an anchor. One evening, Emily approached me in the parking garage after work. "You've been different lately," she said, her voice tight. I smiled. Different? Or just more focused? Her eyes narrowed, searching for a crack in my mask. "Have you heard anything? About me?" It took everything I had not to laugh. "Emily, I'm not sure what you mean, but if there's something you think I should know." I let the sentence hang unfinished and walked away. From that point, she was hooked. I started noticing her making little mistakes, missing social events, forgetting commitments, snapping at Carter in public. All the while, I continued feeding her anonymous messages. "You can't hide forever. He's going to find out. Tick-tock." Her paranoia was my greatest weapon. But the true climax of this phase came when Carter signed off on a major asset transfer to the foreign investor he trusted completely, me. It was all perfectly legal on paper, but in reality, it bled the company dry. The best part? Emily didn't even realize that the cracks in her marriage weren't just emotional. They were about to be financial, social, and reputational. And when those worlds collide, that's when the real fun begins. By the time the last week of October arrived, everything was in place. For months, I had been carefully tightening the noose without them realizing it. Small delays in key deliveries, quiet conversations with suppliers, strategic accidental leaks to potential clients about internal instability. Nothing too obvious, just enough to plant seeds of doubt and make cracks form in the image they were trying so desperately to project. Jason and Mia had built their perfect life on two foundations: money and reputation. My plan was to pull both out from under them in one swift motion. It all started with an email. I had kept in touch with several of our old clients through a fake consulting identity. I accidentally forwarded them a detailed file, complete with screenshots, falsified reports, and a few genuine documents I had quietly taken months ago, showing Jason's shady accounting practices and his habit of mixing company funds with personal expenses. The evidence looked real because, in part, it was real. And Jason? He'd been sloppy for years, assuming no one would ever look too closely. Within 2 days, rumors spread like wildfire through the business circles. Contracts were paused. Investors reconsidered their positions. Mia, ever the social butterfly, started getting fewer invites to the charity galas and influencer events she loved so much. She didn't know it yet, but her glamorous life was about to be over. The second part of my plan hit harder. Remember the charity auction Mia had been bragging about for months? The one where she was supposed to be the centerpiece host? I'd arranged for a very public accident. A timed release of security footage showing Mia in a hotel elevator with a man who was definitely not Jason and definitely not me. She'd been careless, thinking no one would notice her little side distractions while she played the role of devoted wife. The footage dropped on social media during the auction. I can still imagine the moment her phone must have lit up in her hand, dozens of notifications flooding in, whispers starting around the room as eyes darted toward her. Jason left halfway through the night, his face pale, his jaw clenched. By the next morning, he'd filed for divorce. But that was just the personal side. The professional side came crashing down when an official investigation into Jason's company was announced. Tax fraud, embezzlement, breach of contract. It wasn't all my doing. I'd simply pushed the first domino. The rest fell naturally, because Jason had built his empire on lies. Mia, suddenly without the money, prestige, or stability, tried to salvage her image with a sobbing Instagram live about being betrayed. It didn't work. The comments were brutal. Sponsors dropped her. Her friends stopped answering her calls. And me? I watched it all unfold from a quiet apartment on the other side of the city. No one knew my real name there. No one knew what I'd done. The beauty of revenge isn't in the act itself. It's in the silence that follows. The quiet knowledge that you ended them, and they'll never fully understand how it happened. Months later, I passed me on the street. She didn't see me. She looked older, worn out, walking fast with her head down. No designer bag, no makeup, no entourage. Just another stranger in the crowd. I smiled to myself and kept walking. Because the truth is, I hadn't just destroyed their relationship or their careers. I'd taken the one thing they could never get back, their confidence.